Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with yet another live stream today coming to you from Madrid, 7:35 p.m, the usual time for these midweek live streams. A little bit earlier on Sunday, of course, when I get the live stream out at about 7:30, so a little bit later. But we're going to go through some of the news that has caught my attention today in the press and recently in the press, some comments that have been left on videos recently, the usual format. And then for the second half of the video, we'll change the backdrop and we'll go into the chat section and see what's happening there. I've already seen that there's a fair bit of activity in the chat section, so keep it up. And the second half of the video, I'll go through and see if there are any interesting things to talk about in the chat section, which no doubt I'm sure there will be. So let's get straight into the news. Firstly, the like button. If you haven't hit it yet, please do so just below the video. And we'll see if we can get up to a decent tally of likes today. Never know. We got over the 100 mark yesterday, which was good, considering that it was an irregular live stream, yesterday's live stream. Now, the first piece of news related to tourist flats here in Spain. And one city, Toledo, has decided to put a stop to tourist flats. It will prohibit more than 20% of dwellings in the historic centre. Finding tourist accommodation in Toledo is infinitely easier than looking for a long-term rental property in the historic centre of the capital of Castilla-La Mancha. Only 28 flats are offered for rent within the city walls, while for the weekend of the 3rd to the 5th of March alone, 448 accommodations are listed on Airbnb. Toledo City Council wants to put a stop to the proliferation of housing in this part of the city, which is emptying of residents and making way for fleeting tourists. The local government has drafted the so-called Ordenanza Reguladora del Uso Extrahotelero, consisting of tourist dwellings and tourist apartments, which has already been discussed in the Urban Planning Commission and will be brought to the plenary session this Thursday. So, interesting data coming from this article here. If you look for a long-term rental in the historic centre of Toledo, only 28 flats available, long-term rentals. But if you want to stay there for 2 or 3 days, 448 Airbnbs on offer. So something's gone wrong with that system. And I was speaking to a friend the other day who has an apartment for rent here in Madrid, and I said, why don't you Airbnb it? And he said, well, I'm not stupid, because Airbnb, you don't get the same tax advantages that you get for renting long-term. So if you have a person in there renting long-term, the tax benefits outweigh the incomes that come in from Airbnb. In fact, if you have Airbnbs, according to him, and he's a gestor, he said you get slapped left, right, and center, plus you have the additional inconvenience of having to clean the flat every time someone comes in and out. So for him, the only way to go is long-term rental in this country, but it's a question for debate. But when it comes to individual people renting out flats for Airbnb, he said it's not worth it from a tax point of view. Another story if it's a company, and that could be the case in Toledo, that these big investment funds own a lot of those rental properties. But as we saw there, something's gone wrong in Toledo and many cities here in Spain, because the balance is out of whack between the long-term rentals and the short-term tourist accommodation like Airbnb, etc. Now, the second piece of news we'll look at today, this one here, corruption is again rearing its ugly head here in Spain, unfortunately. And the headline says, former PSOE or Socialist Party deputy Juan Bernardo Fuentes arrested for alleged fraud scheme in the Canary Islands. According to sources close to the investigation, agents of the National Police have arrested this Monday the former PSOE deputy of the Canary Islands, Juan Bernardo Fuentes, for his alleged involvement in the so-called Mediador case, an anti-fraud operation that investigates the management of aid for food products and for which he was under investigation. The arrest of the former socialist deputy in the Congress of Deputies until he resigned last week because he was under investigation took place during the search of his home on the island of Fuerteventura. Fuentes was Director General of Livestock at the beginning of the current Canarian government's term of office and was taken over by his nephew, Taixet Fuentes, who is also allegedly implicated in the case. So let me see if I can get this right. He was the former Director of Livestock in the Canary Islands, which is a government organisation, and he was substituted in that position by his nephew. So not only do we have corruption, but also nepotism allegedly there in the Canary Islands, and again rearing its ugly head. So it doesn't matter if you're on the right side of politics, if you're on the left side of politics, if you see easy money there to be taken, which was the case here apparently through these funds that were coming through for the farming industry in the Canary Islands, this guy decided to allegedly take a cut. And talking about corruption and scandals, the next article here about Barcelona Football Club. But according to the coach of Barcelona, we've been joking about the referee scandal at Barcelona all week. Barcelona manager Xavi claimed his players aren't worried about the team's refereeing scandal and that they are focused on the season. What happened? Barcelona's sporting integrity has been called into question after the club sent 33 separate payments to a company owned by Jose Maria Enriquez Negreira, then the vice president of the Technical Committee of Referees in Spain between 2016 and 2018. Today, what they said, today we have focused everything with Cádiz. Isolation from Cádiz laughs is the best possible way, except with some little jokes. That's the team that they were going to play. Xavi said in a press conference, "We focus on our work. We have not dealt with it in a group, nor has it been discussed." And the bigger picture for Barcelona Football Club. Barca cannot be officially investigated by La Liga as the Football Federation is unable to look into cases more than 3 years old. However, League President Javier Tebas didn't rule out a criminal probe. Tebas also suggested that Barcelona's titles could be tainted if they are found guilty of wrongdoing. So, I'm not sure if you're up to speed with this, but the Barcelona Football Club has been accused of paying the head of the referee committee, as we saw there, during a period of time, and payments going into the millions of euros apparently. I think I heard 7 million euros. And what exactly happened, nobody knows because it's under investigation at the moment. But we think, and it has also been said, that during that 2-year period, not one penalty was blown against Barcelona in La Liga in those 2 seasons, which they won. And is this a one-off case? I don't know. Could it be that other clubs here in Spain are also paying referees? Watch La Liga and you might come to your own conclusion on that every weekend, especially when you see that the same 2 teams generally win every week. One of them is Barcelona and the other one here in Madrid. But I'm not going to name names of that other team. But that's the big scandal at the moment, the refereeing scandal that the Barcelona Football Club is involved in. But the coach, we're joking about the scandal. No problems. We're concentrated on what we're doing now, not something that happened years ago when Xavi was a player and obviously benefited as a result of those payments to the referee. Time will tell. As I said, it's in a criminal investigation at the moment. But also the La Liga can't investigate anything more than 3 years old. So any scandal going back more than 3 years, who cares? First piece of news. First comment from Melinda. No, I would not have that dish for breakfast. And another similar comment from Mike. Spanish omelette and tripe for breakfast? No. For lunch? No. For dinner? No. So fairly clear, Mike is not a fan of that dish that we saw on yesterday's live stream, which was some type of tripe with tortilla de patatas. Didn't look very appetizing on the plate, but apparently people are lining up to eat this in Barcelona at weekends. Saw a comment from somebody saying, but at breakfast time in Barcelona is around 11, 12 o'clock. Could be the case. People do tend to eat breakfast late at weekends, and maybe they need something more substantial for their first meal of the day, but it didn't look very appetizing, and both Elinda and Mike saying, no way, Jose, would I be eating that meal that you showed us yesterday, Stuart, on the channel. And to be honest, I can't blame them because it did look very stodgy indeed. But anyway, another comment from Shangyin. I rode an electric bike to work every day when I worked in Nanjing 20 years ago. It cost $300 Australian and was the quickest way around the city at peak times. Adding to the debate about alternative vehicles and alternative ways to get around busy cities, we saw yesterday that the European Union is recommending that VAT be slashed or taken off electric bike repairs because they want to encourage more people onto electric bikes. And Shangin here saying that it was the best way to get around the city when he was working there 20 years ago. Fast, in and out of the traffic, electric bike, charge it up and away you go. It's not so physical, let's say. And I think that is the way with electric bikes. There are lots of electric bikes on the streets nowadays, and it does seem like an easy way to get around and a good way to avoid traffic in some cities. But here in Spain, I wouldn't yet recommend bicycles at peak hour times in Spanish cities, because it can be a little bit dangerous, and you do take your life into your own hands if riding a bike in some Spanish cities at peak times, in my opinion. But thanks for the comment, Shangin. Another comment here from Alan. New tax could put thousands of workers in Spain out of a job. Called the European Travel Information and Authorization System, ETIAS, will be applied to those visiting the Schengen area from November. Describing the tax as a threat, the Tourism Board said it risked undermining Spain's tourism sector during the first General Assembly of the year. Now, a few people brought my attention to this new tax, if you like, or fee that people will have to pay to come into the European Union. I think it's around €7, and the Spanish government or the Spanish Tourist Board is worried that it's going to put people off coming here because now the biggest market for Spanish tourism, the British market, of course, outside the European Union, as we know, will have to fork out that €7.50 or whatever it is to get their hands on that visa, which, as we see here, it's called the Travel Information and Authorization System for people coming into the Schengen area. So another setback there for the tourism sector, but the European Union obviously thinks that it's a good idea, and it wouldn't be the first country in the world to charge to get a visa. I remember many years ago, to get an Australian visa you had to pay, and I think I also had to pay for Spanish visas back in the 1990s, the times that I came to Spain from the United Kingdom when I was living there. I think I had to pay money, £20, £30, £40 to get a visa back in the day. So not the first time that people will charge you to travel into a certain zone, but Spanish Tourist Board not happy with this introduction of this tourist tax, let's say, or fee to enter the European Union. Another comment here from Terence. Interesting. Stuart, one of your viewers, commenting on the quietness of electric vehicles that we saw yesterday. This is absolutely true and could be dangerous under a variety of circumstances. I am reminded that just after World War II and the early 1950s in London and possibly elsewhere, the authorities introduced the electric double-decker bus. These ran in conjunction with the regular bus services but were extremely quiet, to the extent that they could be on top of you before you realised. They were abandoned, but I do not know the reason why. But interesting that this problem has now raised its head. We like your delivery, the TJR of the Canary Islands. So interesting, I didn't know this, that electric buses were used in the 1950s or just after World War II in London, was it that he said there? Yeah. And one of the problems was that they were very quiet and people didn't hear them coming, stepped out onto the road, and I'm sure that there would have been accidents. And this was pointed out yesterday by Daryl in one of the comments, that in Barcelona, with the electric vehicles that are circulating around that city, when they're traveling at low speeds, you don't hear them coming. So an extra hazard for pedestrians, unfortunately. Not only needing to look to your left and right frequently, but also making sure that those electric vehicles are not creeping up on you and perhaps running you over because you haven't heard it coming. Whereas you can hear a traditional bus coming down the street, or you can hear a motorbike coming down the street, or you can hear a car coming down the street. But these electric vehicles, when they travel at low speeds, difficult to hear. And I've had a couple of occasions when I've stepped outside here and maybe for whatever reason I didn't look to my left, and there has been a vehicle coming up the street in silence. Interesting. So we'll see what happens. And some people also said, somebody left a comment also saying that electric vehicles were around in the 1880s and 1890s, something that I didn't know. So we're going back to those times apparently after the fuel revolution of the 20th century. And the final comment here from Raphael, by the time we reach 2035, the distance range in electric vehicles will most likely increase. Well, I certainly hope so, Raphael, that we do get extra kilometres in the range that we can travel in electric cars. I heard something about Chinese electric vehicles with a range of up to 1,000 kilometres. I can't say that that's true because I haven't read the information or tried the vehicle, but that's what they're saying. Whereas current vehicles, I think the average here in Spain of all of the electric vehicles is about 320, and some vehicles do 600, some do 120. So it depends, sort of the middle, but the average is 320, as I said. So we'll see if we get the 1,000-kilometre range electric vehicles. But yeah, I imagine that the technology will improve if they insist on batteries. If we don't get problems with the battery market in coming years because of the lack of raw materials to make the batteries, or if people realize that all of these batteries lying around are a hazard to the environment, I don't know what's going to happen. But I think that something similar will happen with what we saw with mobile telephones. So we know that when mobile telephones first came out, they were huge because of the battery size. And now you can get very slim, small mobile telephones because the batteries have improved over those years. And of course, we get longer charges now with our mobile phones. You know, some phones can last all day. If you get a new phone, it lasts all day. But I remember back in 2008, I think it was. 1998 when I first came here. I'm forgetting the dates that I arrived in Spain. 1998, 1999 when I got my first phone. My first mobile phone, which not only was it big, but the battery lasted about 30 minutes if you spoke continuously for that 30 minutes. But nowadays, this telephone here, I can go nearly a whole day with only having to charge it once. So the technology has improved, and as Rafael says, that most likely by 2035, when the sale of new diesel and petrol cars comes in, the banning of the sale of new diesel and petrol cars comes in, the technology will have improved, if it is still around. We don't know. All right, good. Now we're up to 75 likes. I'm going to put the little like icon back on the screen. I'm also going to change the backdrop in a moment. I'll put up a viewer pic, and I'll do that now. So if you haven't hit the like button, just hit the like button just below the video. We'll see if we can get over 100 today also. Let's see. Now, backdrop change time. This one was sent in by Marianne, who has sent in a few photos over the last few months. And this is apparently the coast up there in the Bay of Biscayne, up there in the Basque Country, somewhere between one town and San Sebastian. I can't remember the name of the town, but Marianne sent this one in, and her travels, obviously, and it's a typical Basque town there on the coast, and a very nice backdrop we have here of that fantastic part of the country that is the Basque Country here in Spain, in the north of the country. So thanks, Marianne, for sending that in. And if you've got a picture that you would like to see on the backdrop, the email address is this one up here, spainspeaks@gmail.com. I normally get around 2 or 3 a day coming in, so if I don't get around to putting yours up, don't worry, I will get around to it, or send it to me again if I haven't used it yet. And remember the size of the photo. So landscape size, so ones that you take with a mobile phone like this, not ones that you take like that, okay? Just so that I can get it onto the backdrop in my 1080p format here. All right, now into the chat section. We're up to the 18-minute mark. Let's see what's happening there. Let's have a look. I'll go back to the beginning. Maga, first one here today. Coming in from El Campello is Maga. Hello, Maga. Hope all is well. Ross coming in from Albany, New York. Frank coming in from Crawley in the UK. Hi, Frank. Hope all is well. Frank Fernandez there. Andrew coming in also from the United Kingdom, London, southeast. CH also coming in from London. I mentioned this yesterday. Lots of Londoners in the chat section. Barbara coming in from the Playa Flamenca down there in Alicante, I believe. James, we saw one of James's pictures yesterday, I think, coming in from Worcester. I think you pronounce it that way, I think. I never know with some of these English names, like some of the Australian town names. Difficult to pronounce if you haven't grown up with them. Home of the sauce, he says. Yes, the famous Worcestershire sauce, which goes down a treat with some meats. Been mild and sunny here, but set to get colder soon. Looking forward to heading back to the Costa Blanca in 4 weeks. Hope all goes well with that trip, James. And Kathy, sorry. Pamela coming in from sunny San Juan de los Terreros, I think it is. Elaine coming in from New Jersey, 5 degrees Celsius there. A warm day in Madrid today. I think it cracked the 20 mark. And we also had the famous Kalima, which has annoyed me greatly because yesterday I made the mistake of cleaning my car. I went to the car wash and spent about 10 minutes there with a high-pressure hose cleaning the car. And today it rained, and I have little brown spots all over my car because of the Kalima. Not as bad as it was last year, but I imagine that in places like Malaga in the south of Spain, maybe in Almeria as well, it's even worse than it is here. Because if we get Kalima in Madrid, it's worse in the south of the country. That's been my experience. So the Kalima has me ha fastidiado la limpieza de mi coche. Alan coming in from San Diego, 17 degrees Celsius there, similar to what we had here, a little bit more maybe in Madrid today. Robert coming in from Vancouver, sunny and cool there. Family living in near Benidorm, 17 degrees Celsius there. They always joke that if I could send some rain from Vancouver to there, that would probably help that area. Alicante is a very dry region. Murcia is also a very dry region. And with the cut to the water supply, who knows what's going to happen in the future with those areas. Yes, they depend on water from other parts of the country, but nobody wants to give them the water. It's an issue, political issue. What else we got going on here? Shay Rubio coming in from Guadalajara, Mexico. Jan coming in from London, another Londoner. Kay coming in from Molina, Andalusia. Jacques coming in from don't know where. Can't wait to hear about the scandal. Well, it was the Barcelona football scandal, which has rocked the La Liga here in Spain. People can't believe that this has happened, that Barcelona might have been given a couple of titles there a few years ago because of maybe they paid an umpire to influence the result. We don't know, or referee to influence the result. That's the scandal. And we're only just at the tip of the iceberg with the scandal. I'm sure that more is going to break. Jose Antonio coming in from the Royal City. Anna coming in from London also. Amanda also in the chat. I think Shropshire is the place where Amanda comes from, I think, in the UK. Elaine, what's going on here? We'll be in Spain in June and July and September as well. Hope all goes well with that trip, Elaine. Mick coming in from Moreira. Marianne coming in from San Diego. Thanks for the Spanish news. Short-term rentals are a big issue here as well. Yeah, I think it's a big issue all around the world. But as I said, my friend the gestor said the other day that long-term rental is the only way to go for him because of the tax deductions. He says that it's worth his while to have it long-term rent and not short-term rent. And I said, but why do so many people go into short-term renting? And he said, basically they don't understand the system and they're just after cheap money but not thinking about the long-term consequences. That was his opinion. But again, that's just his. But he's in the market, not me. Simon coming in from Lanzarote, still down there, enjoying the Canarian weather. What else we got going on here? Talking about Jay talking about avoiding tent city in the downtown area. Not sure what Jay's talking about there. Maybe somewhere in the States there's a tent city. Not sure. I haven't seen a tent city in Spain yet. But I saw a video on YouTube the other day of somebody driving around Portland, Oregon. I couldn't believe how many people were living in tents. I couldn't believe what I was watching. Portland, Oregon. All of the buildings were barricaded up. Couldn't get into public buildings. Guards out the front. Shops shut down. People living in the center of Oregon in tents. What's going on? Anyway. UB is coming in from something rotten in the state of Toledo. Well, when it comes to the tourist accommodation, absolutely. If there's only 28 long-term rentals and 400 short-terms, absolutely there's something going on there. People are after quick money, or maybe, as I said, those investment funds have snapped up all of those properties. Toledo is a tourist mecca, let's say. If anybody's been to Toledo, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a city that's just been made, well, hasn't been made for tourists, but the last 100 or so years, it's just a tourist city. I was reading a book recently about somebody who visited Toledo back in the 1950s, and it was as if he was talking about today. Exactly the same. What else we got going on? Bob coming in from Torre Vieja. Am I planning to go back to the Nick Johnny type of format anytime soon? Not sure, Bob. I'm looking for volunteers. If people want to come on the channel and have a chat, people are welcome. Nick, I haven't been in contact recently, ever since England won or beat Australia in the cricket. I think they ended up winning the tournament. We haven't been on the speaking terms, I don't think. Just joking. And Johnny is off doing his own thing. Yeah, he's got his own channel up and running, so he's off doing his own thing. But if anybody wants to come on and have a chat, I'm open. We'll organise something if we can. Alan also coming in from the UK, saying hello to everybody. Having trouble reading the room. My walls are covered in newspaper. Alan always drops a few jokes during the live streams. Joe coming in from Santa Cruz, or Santa Cruz, I imagine they say there. Santa Cruz would be the word here in Spain. California, hope all is well. Yeah. Let's have a look at what's going on here. Nephewtism is what Jose Antonio says. Yeah, I think it was nephewtism, or nepotism is the other word that we use when family members are given an advantage over others, and I think that's the case down there in the Canaries. So this person's nephew got into the top job there. Jay also saying that the corruption in the Canary Islands doesn't surprise him. Lived there for 1.5 years and was shocked at how the low class of the resident Canarians and foreigners. Yeah, corruption is unfortunately something that always rears its ugly head every now and again. We saw it years ago, corruption scandal after corruption scandal. And now when all of this money comes into the country, of course, people think that they're smarter than everyone else and take advantage of it. And basically the problem is a lack of transparency. And I've come to that conclusion that nobody knows where the money goes. And until they do an audit, maybe 2 or 3 years down the track, they don't realise that these things have been happening for years and years and years. And almost guaranteed that in the next 5 to 10 years here in Spain, corruption scandals are going to proliferate because of all of this money that's coming to the European Union. It doesn't matter how many people from the EU come down to try to control it. There's always going to be someone there that's trying to put their hand into the pot and take care of a generation or two of their family, which is normally what happens. All right, Richard coming in from a milder North Yorkshire tonight. Bit late, but been busy buying sherry glasses on eBay. There we go. A sherry fan is Richard. What else we got going on here? Jimmy. Jimmy's saying, Stu, I can't come to my own conclusion. Can you slip me 20 euros for this? Yeah, absolutely. Let me know. I'll put it into your bank account. Hit the like button, says Andrew. If you can, I'll put the like icon back on the screen. If we haven't hit it yet, please do so, just below the video. We'll see if we can get up to a decent tally. 104 at the moment. Let's see if we can get around 125, 130 likes today. Let's see. So hit that like button whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. Ezra is saying that Spanish football has always been dodgy. Well, you could come to that conclusion quite easily looking at the list of people that have won, or the list of teams that have won La Liga. And you'll see that 2 teams have dominated the competition, Real Madrid and Barcelona. Obviously because they have more money, they're the 2 biggest regions in Spain. More money, more supporters. But as we see, scandals like this could be more common. I don't know. But my family are Atletico de Madrid supporters, and they're always complaining about dodgy refereeing, especially with the big teams. Penalties that are never, the referee never blows the whistle for penalties when certain teams are playing. And we saw an example of a Spanish referee at the World Cup recently during the Argentina-Netherlands game. I don't know if you saw that game. An absolute disgrace of a referee was that person in that competition. And if that's the standard, if that's the best that the country's got to offer, then you can imagine what happens here in La Liga. All right, what else we got going on? There we go. USA and Australia have similar systems to ETIAS. Yeah, well, Australia, as I said, used to charge people for visas. I'm not sure whether they still do, because the last couple of times that I've got visas for people that have gone to Australia, I don't think they were charged. But again, I could be wrong, because it depends on the government. Government comes in, they change the rule. Government goes out, the rule changes. So, but I remember in the past, people did have to pay for a visa to go to Australia. Don't know how much it was, can't remember, but it was a similar system. But the last couple of times, I think it's been free. I think. Welsh Toto is in the chat section as well. James, talking about tripe. We saw the tripe and tortilla de patatas recipe yesterday. Not very attractive. My grandfather used to eat tripe cooked in milk with nutmeg. He used to slurp it down with gusto. It looked disgusting. Yeah, quite popular with older generations in Australia is tripe. My father, for example, is a member of a tripe club, I believe. Every month they go to a different restaurant and sample tripe. So he likes it. But you don't get too many young people eating tripe, I don't think, anymore. Here in Spain, yes, because you can get it still in the menú del día. In fact, I had tripe 2 weeks ago. Portugal as well, they do good tripe dishes. But the one that you mentioned here with milk, yeah, I've seen it in Australia. It doesn't look very attractive, and that's probably why I never ate it when I was there. But my father, yes. Here we go, Andrew. When he first came to Spain in 1966, we had to pay a tourist tax for many years, so nothing new. Absolutely nothing new. And as I said, when I first came to Spain back in the early 1990s, I'm fairly sure that in fact, I'll have a look at my passport because it's got the quantity written on it. But I think I had to pay £20 from London to get a visa to come into Spain. So £20, €7 seems cheap. Don't know what people are complaining about. Alan, 25 to visit Europe for a visa. To visit Egypt for the cost of a visa. There we go, 25. No one complaining about that. All right, what else got going on here? Robert, just found you live streaming, like number 67. Thank you very much, Robert, for your like. Alan asking the question, is Spain going down the 15-minute city road? Yeah, I've seen this popping up in the press recently, people getting worried about the concept of a 15-minute city. Apparently, from what I have read, people are saying that some people are saying, I don't believe this, of course, but some people are saying that we're going to be trapped in cities. But to tell you the truth, I lived in Madrid for 10 years, and Madrid, for me, was almost a 15-minute city. Everything was in 15 or 20 minutes of where I needed to go. If I had to go to the supermarket, 5 minutes I was there. If I had to go to work in the centre on a bus, 15 minutes I was there. So the concept of a 15-minute city is nothing new. The problem is that when you come from a place like Australia where everything is so expansive, let's say, that you have to hop in the car and travel 15 minutes to go to some supermarkets or shopping centres, then the idea of a 15-minute city doesn't really make sense, hence people's worries. But when you live in the centre of a big city here in Spain or Europe, where you can have everything at your fingertips, or even living in London, if you're living and working in a city like London, realistically, 15, 20 minutes on the tube, you can get pretty far, as long as the tube's working correctly. So I have no problem with the concept as long as it's done well, and I don't believe the theories that people are going to be locked in cities. That's my take on it, Alan. But people can believe whatever they want, and I have seen some people going on about the 15-minute city as a negative thing. But like I said, in Madrid, or if you live in any other Spanish city, in Murcia, where I was last week, you could classify Murcia as a 10-minute city. Within 10 minutes, you're anywhere in that city. So is that a 10-minute city or an 8-minute city or a 15-minute city? What's wrong with that? If I could travel within 10 minutes to take my kids to school, to go to the supermarket, to get everything I needed done, fantastic. I've got no problem with it. But the theory that we're going to be locked into these 15-minute cities, rhubarb. My opinion. All right, what else we got going on here? Ezra saying that they love the wine and food reviews. I find them entertaining. Like to know what the Spanish food is in English. I'm always looking for good Spanish wines for €15. You get a decent one for 15. €15 here in Spain, you get a decent wine. Well, actually, you get a very good wine for 15. You know, I would say that you can't go wrong paying €15 for a bottle of wine. The ones that I normally get around that 8, 9, 10 euro mark are decent. But when you go up to that next level, 15, 16, 17, fantastic quality wines, Ezra. But don't worry, there'll be more food review videos coming up. Now I'm going to change the backdrop. We're up to 34 minutes. I'll put this next one on that was sent in here by Rosie, who's also a regular contributor. A shot of somewhere in Valencia. Not sure exactly where it is, but it's a nice garden down there in Valencia City, I believe. So thank you very much, Rosie, for sending this one through. And if you've got a picture that you would like to see on the backdrop, that's the address here, spainspeaks@gmail.com. Send them through. As I said, I will get around to doing it, provided that the size is correct. Okay? All right, what else we got going on here? There we go, Barry, confirming the first electric vehicles were in the 1890s. Yeah, it didn't last long. As soon as that fuel revolution came along, they were out the door. And we started to guzzle the fuel. But we could have had fantastic electric technology by now if they had have kept with it, probably. That could be an argument. I don't know. Daryl's in the chat section as well. Carrie's here as well. What else we got going on here? Well, Toto, I look forward with gusto to the removal from our streets of Spain of those infernal scooters without silencers. Well, that's a problem in some parts of the country that, actually, I think they remove the silencers a lot of the time to make their little scooters sound bigger than they actually are, and they're an absolute pain when they travel through those streets that are, have those high rises on both sides, and the sound echoes off the sides of the building. Very, very noisy. And normally the same type of person in Spain, they call them macarras. In Australia, we call them bogans. You know the type of people I'm talking about, macarras. All right, what else got going on here? Babs coming in from Wales. Another regular viewer is Babs. Let's have a look. What we got going on here? See if I can find something here. Jimbo Roosters. Yeah, I was going to talk about this yesterday, that Australia beat Spain 3-2 in women's football, considering that they thrashed us last year 7-0, I think. We got our revenge again, but it wasn't the World Cup. We have to be able to do it at the World Cup. But we've got a good team, I think, in Australia when it comes to women's football. We've got a very good player from Western Australia, Sam Kerr. I think she plays for Chelsea currently in the Women's League. And her brother, interestingly enough, played Australian rules football at the highest level for the local team in Perth called the West Coast Eagles, Daniel Kerr. And his sister, Sam Kerr, now the captain of the, I think they're called the Matildas, but don't quote me on that, the women's soccer team or women's football team in Australia, European football. All right, what else we got going on here? Let's have a look. Yeah, they're extracting the rare metals for the batteries. That is true. Debbie coming in from Florida. Hello, Debbie. Hope you are well. What else we got going on here? Mallorca under the sun. 20 degrees there today. Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Alex. The weather is looking good in Mallorca. As we get closer to that spring-summer period, it's just endless good weather for that part of the world. All right, what else we got going on here? Massive problem, the disposal of the electric batteries, according to Daryl. Absolutely. These are roads that we're going to have, paths that we're going to have to cross when we come to them, I think, or roads or paths, whatever they say in that expression. That is true, Daryl. Yep, the disposal of batteries, recycling probably. Alan coming in from Scotland, 5 degrees Celsius there. Snow forecast for the weekend, not looking good. What else we got going on here? Mallorca under the sun. You're my favourite Spanish news source. Always have you on in my kitchen while cooking or washing up. Check out Mallorca's channel as well, an informative channel there in Mallorca. Check it out if you're interested in the Balearic Islands. Plenty of activity happening there always. What else we got going on here? Correct pronunciation of Worcester. I think, yeah. Well, I know the sauce is called Worcester sauce, I think. But it's always difficult for me, some of these English town names. Very difficult if you don't live in the UK, hearing these names a lot. Difficult to know the correct pronunciation of some of them. Then again, where I come from, again, some places are very difficult to pronounce. So some of the suburbs of Perth, for example, that have the original name or the original area names. Wagga Wagga, for example. What else got going on here? Joseph coming in from Glasgow, 9 degrees but dull. So plenty of activity in the chat section. I might not get through it all today because we're coming up to the 40-minute mark now, so it's almost time to wrap it up. We're up to 144 likes. I'm going to put the little like icon back on the screen one more time. If you haven't hit it yet, please do so just below the video. We'll see if we can get up to a decent tally, as I said. Maybe the 150 mark, which it'll be a surprise if we do, because I wasn't expecting that today, given that it is Tuesday. All right, good. Corruption Andalusia, hold my beer, says Welsh Toto. Yeah, in the past, corruption has been a problem in Andalusia, of course. Generally happens if you have the same government in power for decades and decades and decades, which was the case in Spain, as I've mentioned on numerous occasions. At a national level, government changes. So in the central government, you get one party, another party, coalition at the moment. But in the autonomous communities here in Spain, sometimes you don't get a change. Andalusia was the classic example. It's only changed in the last 5 or 6 years. The same party was in power for decades. In the Basque Country, it's the same. The same party's been in power for decades. Galicia, Partido Popular, decades in power. Maybe only one change ever in the whole of the post-dictatorship time here in Spain. Castilla-La Mancha, the same. Castilla-León, the same. Madrid, PP, for about ever since I've been here, it's only been the one political party controlling the Madrid community. At the town hall level, it has changed, but now it's back to the PP again. So people like to vote for the same people in the autonomous communities here in Spain. Not sure why, but Andalusia, as I said, decades and decades and decades were the Socialist Party in power down there. 30 or 35, 36 years. Incredible. Incredible. Diffy Dog. Honestly, I have no idea how Stuart has maintained his Australian accent after being in Spain for so long as he has. Still sounds like someone I'd have a beer with and a Palmer with. Well, if you're inviting, I'll be at the pub tomorrow, Diffy Dog. Yeah, the accent. My accent's not as strong as it would be if I were living in Australia currently. In fact, it changes when I go back and I start talking to people there. I do pick up the accent a little bit stronger again. But what I've realized after living in Spain for so long is that if you have a strong accent, no matter where you're from, so if you're from Liverpool and you have a strong accent, if you're from Manchester and you have a strong accent, if you're from Perth and you have a strong accent, if you come from Darwin and you have a strong accent, if you come from Tennessee and you have a strong accent and you teach English, people are not going to understand you. So you have to try to modify that accent so that people understand you, and you sort of start speaking more of a general standard type English that people will understand. But one of the big things that people tell me is that sometimes I speak too quickly. So I might need to slow down my speech. I don't know. But as long as I speak clearly, I think it's okay. We can understand. And I try not to use too many Australianisms, which sometimes do creep in, but I try to keep them out. Yeah, corruption all around the world, says Amanda. Absolutely, Amanda. Corruption is everywhere. It's a human characteristic. If humans see the opportunity and they think they're not going to get caught, they take it. And even here in Spain, knowing that they're going to get caught, they take it because the prison system or the justice system is very, very weak. And a lot of the times these politicians, especially now that they've changed the law, that if you steal money but it doesn't go into your pocket directly, there's no crime. So you can steal money and give it to your brother-in-law, no problem. But as long as it doesn't go into your pocket, no problemo. Schooner of 4X has popped up. Yeah, I'm not a Queensland beer guy. I'm from Western Australia, so we don't drink 4X. And a schooner is a type of glass, Alan, if you're interested. I'm not sure on the exact size of the glass when it comes to fluid ounces or milliliters, but it's a decent-sized glass of beer, and schooner glass, midi, as we say. 4X is a type of beer from Queensland, Australia. What else we got going on here? A couple of YouTubers in Barcelona, says Daryl, that you would find interesting to interview, and they would also benefit from you. Tell me who they are, Daryl, let me know. I'll contact them. I have a few people contact me every now and again to come on their channel, but for some reason, a lot of these emails with things like that end up in my spam, so I don't see them straight away. But I try to get back to people, and if the opportunity pops up, if I can find the time, because at the moment I'm pressed for time, unfortunately, so not easy to find time to go on other people's channels. But I recently did one on the Portuguese channel called Good Morning Portugal. Carl got in contact with me, so I went on his channel for a quick chat, and it was good. Diffy Dog also saying what I said before. Yeah, would never occur in Australia. Way too much urban sprawl. No, that's true. But if you could live in a neighbourhood or a suburb in Australia where you had all of the facilities in your suburb. So, for example, what happens in Perth, and I imagine this happens in every city in Australia, is that Perth just gets bigger and bigger as the years go by. So the whole of the coast is just occupied by new buildings. And friends of mine have recently bought a house, or a couple of years ago, and they're right up north, and it takes them 45 minutes to get into the city. Where I lived all my life, it was about 20 minutes to get in, because people were pushed out, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as people get pushed out into the suburbs. But if you could have all of the facilities in your suburb, I'm sure that people would like that. If you could have all of the schools in your suburb, high schools and things like that. But even in Perth, that's changed in recent times. Local high schools have disappeared as the demographics have changed, and people now have to travel 10, 20 kilometres to get to a high school. So that could be something to look into in the future. But just to take the dependence off cars, I think, give people easier ways to get things done and get to places, I think. But it would be difficult in Australia. It would be difficult in the States with the urban sprawl. In Madrid, we're also getting urban sprawl nowadays. The area where I'm living, for example. All right, good. Zeddy asking the question, wondering when people who are watching the live stream live don't hit the like. Well, not everybody can hit the like, because if you watch it on TV, there's no option, I don't think, to hit the like button, or it's more difficult to find. If you watch it on a phone, there's no problem. But if you watch it on a television set or some other types of devices, maybe you can't find the like button. That could be the reason. And people come and go. People might stumble across the channel because they see currently live, Spain Speaks, and they click on, what's this about? They don't know what it is. So they're on here for a minute or two, and then they click off. So that's why we get a fluctuation in the amount of people watching. So 202 people watching currently, but a minute ago it was 190. So it's gone up 10 or 12 right at the end of this live stream. So if I stayed here for another 2 hours, I don't know how many people would come into the live stream, but I'm going to wrap it up in a minute. Makish asking, what's a macarra or a bogan? Well, basically, macarra is a person that likes to drive a hotted-up car with fancy wheels, and maybe the engine's been tuned. They like to rev around the streets, maybe drag racing or something like that. Person that doesn't respect other people's, they don't like to live with other people. They tend to, maybe they drive along and they throw a can of Coke out the window, not caring about the environment, things like that. People that still throw cigarette butts out the window, a macarra. And a bogan in Australia is basically someone who wears black, somebody who wakes up in the morning, puts on an AC/DC singlet, sometimes with long hair, little bit, maybe have a mullet, the old mullet hairstyle. In the States, they'd call them a redneck probably, but in Australia, we call them bogans. And now it's in fashion for people to be a bogan. Every time I go back, there seems to be more and more bogans. But anyway, yeah, you're right. Sam Kerr's brother did. I don't know whether he spent time in jail, but he was in trouble with the law for various reasons. Domestic violence, I think, and drugs and things like that. But he played football at a bad time for that particular club when there was a drug problem, and we saw the results of that. But that's Sam Kerr's brother, exactly. Daniel Kerr is his name. A very good footballer he was too. So sporting talent runs in the family. Now I'm going to wrap the video up. I could stay here all night, but that's not my objective. Thanks for watching. Thanks for participating in the chat. Thanks for sending the backdrop photos through. I'll see you all again on Thursday for another live stream. Hasta entonces. Hasta luego. Adiós.